Have you ever wondered why some of the kindest, most genuine people never seem to reach the success they deserve? Why honesty sometimes gets outmaneuvered? Why generosity, instead of being rewarded, often ends with people feeling used? The truth is, failure doesn't always come from bad luck or tough circumstances. Often, it comes from not knowing how to balance moral values with strategic intelligence. Machiavelli once observed, "He who is only good but not wise will never survive in this world." His words still cut to the heart of human nature 5 centuries later. What I'm about to share with you isn't a trick or manipulation. It's a way of thinking that allows you to remain true to your integrity while also being sharp enough to achieve meaningful results. If you believe wisdom exists not to manipulate, but to deeply understand human nature, comment below. I seek wisdom. Principle 1. The limitation of rigid thinking. From the time we were children, we were all taught the same lessons. Be honest. Be fair. Wait your turn. Play by the rules. And make no mistake, those lessons matter. They shape our sense of integrity and guide us toward becoming good people. But here's the question I want you to pause and consider. When has pure honesty or pure goodness alone been enough to create real, lasting change in your life? Think back carefully. Not what made you feel proud in the moment. Not what got you praised by others. But the times you actually achieved meaningful results. If you're struggling to find an example, there's a reason. It isn't because goodness is wrong. It's because goodness without strategy often leads to limited effectiveness. Take a situation from everyday American life. Picture a dedicated employee in New York. She works hard, stays late, never complains, and never tries to take credit for work that benefits the team. She believes the old saying, "If I do good work, my boss will notice." 5 years pass, and when a promotion becomes available, it doesn't go to her. It goes to the colleague who is competent, yes, but also understands timing, visibility, and relationships. He speaks up in meetings. He builds rapport outside of the office. He combines effort with strategy, and he gets the result. Now, is this a story about the good person being punished? No. It's a story about the good person who was unprepared. She was good, but she wasn't strategic. And in the modern world, as in Machiavelli's Florence, strategy is often the missing ingredient that separates those who achieve from those who remain overlooked. Machiavelli once wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." Now, at first glance, that might sound cold, almost dishonest. But if you look deeper, you'll see the point he was making. Circumstances change. Context matters. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. And rigidly holding to one rule, even a noble one, can sometimes create outcomes that betray the very values you were trying to uphold. Think about it in your own life. How many times have you said yes because you didn't want to seem selfish, only to feel resentment later? How many times have you forgiven someone immediately because you thought that was the right thing, only to watch them repeat the same mistake? How many times have you stayed quiet in a meeting because you didn't want to interrupt, only to watch someone else take the opportunity you were waiting for? Rigid thinking leads to rigid results. It locks you in. It makes you predictable. And predictability, in the hands of people who are more strategically aware, can become a weakness. Here's the truth. Principles are not meant to trap you. They're meant to guide you wisely. Honesty matters, fairness matters, but wisdom lies in knowing how to apply them. When direct honesty builds trust, and when it may need to be framed more carefully. When fairness creates balance, and when it may require firmness to protect what's right. Every effective leader in history has understood this balance. Abraham Lincoln was honest, but he was also shrewd in timing his words and actions. Martin Luther King Jr. stood for justice, but he understood strategy, symbolism, and human psychology. They were good men, yes, but they were never naive. They knew that goodness alone does not move systems. Strategic goodness does. So here's the takeaway for you. If you find yourself frustrated that being a good person isn't working the way you expected, it may not mean you need to abandon your values. It may mean you need to combine them with strategy. Remember this: principles are not there to bind you. They are tools to be applied with wisdom. And once you learn to balance your integrity with intelligence, you stop being overlooked and you start creating real, positive change. Principle 2: the psychology of social expectations. From the time you were young, society has been teaching you the same polished lessons. Don't cause conflict. Forgive everything. Always be accommodating. On the surface, these sound noble. They sound virtuous. They sound like the traits of a kind, civilized person. And in many cases, they are. But here's the harsh truth. In real-world America, following these lessons too literally often turns you into one thing: predictable. And predictable people are the easiest to overlook, manipulate, or silence. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a man in California. Every week, he joins his company's team meeting online. He's prepared. He has thoughtful contributions. But each time he begins to speak, someone interrupts him. He tells himself, "Don't make a fuss. Keep the peace." So he stays quiet. The result? His ideas die before they're even heard. His reputation remains that of a nice, polite team member, but not someone to promote, not someone to listen to. His career stalls, not because he lacks ability, but because he allowed social expectations to convince him that silence was virtue. Do you see the trap? Excessive politeness doesn't just make you agreeable, it can erase you from the game entirely. Machiavelli, centuries ago, captured this reality in one piercing observation. Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims for his deceptions. What he meant was this: human beings are conditioned to follow whatever seems immediately comfortable, immediately acceptable. And those who understand this dynamic can and will exploit it. Think of the advice you've been given. Don't demand too much. Don't rock the boat. Just be patient. But notice what happens when those same people's interests are threatened. Do they remain endlessly patient? Do they forgive everything without question? Hardly. They become firm. They become strategic. They defend what matters to them. Yet they prefer you not to do the same, because your passivity benefits them. This is how social expectations quietly condition you. They are sold as rules for harmony, but too often they serve those who want you compliant, predictable, and easy to manage. Look around, and you'll see countless examples. In meetings, the quiet, accommodating employee often sees their work claimed by louder voices. In friendships, the endlessly forgiving person becomes the one people take advantage of because there's never any consequence. In relationships, the partner who never causes conflict becomes the one whose needs are never met because they've trained the other person to ignore them. Every time you tell yourself, "I'm being good" by staying silent, what you're really doing is teaching others that your time, your energy, and your boundaries don't matter. This is why awareness matters. Once you see how these expectations are shaping you, you can make a different choice. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish. Asking for reciprocity doesn't make you demanding. Protecting your legitimate interests while helping others doesn't make you unethical. It makes you balanced. It makes you effective. The challenge is that many of us are afraid of being labeled difficult. But here's the paradox. In the real world, the people who are respected most are rarely the ones who avoided all conflict. They are the ones who addressed conflict with clarity and strength when it was necessary. They are the ones who refuse to let politeness erase their voice. So here is your reminder. Every time you choose silence to preserve short-term harmony, you may be sacrificing long-term influence. Every time you forgive without boundaries, you may be granting permission for repeated harm. Every time you over-accommodate, you may be teaching others that your contributions are optional. Machiavelli understood it, and once you understand it, you can no longer pretend not to see it. That's why this is the moment to remind yourself, I see clearly. Principle 3. The art of presentation and contextual communication. One of the greatest misconceptions about success is that it comes from always being the same person in every situation, with every audience. People love to praise consistency as if it were the highest virtue. But here's the truth that successful people understand, and most others miss. Influence is contextual. The most effective people are not one-dimensional. They know how to adjust their presentation, how to adapt their communication style depending on the moment, the audience, and the stakes. This isn't manipulation. This is intelligence. This is wisdom in action. Think about it. You don't speak to your grandmother the same way you speak to your boss. You don't explain an idea to a 5-year-old the same way you explain it to a colleague in Silicon Valley. Yet many people cling to the belief that authenticity means saying everything the same way, no matter who's listening. They think, if I change my tone or my style, I'm being fake. But in reality, refusing to adapt isn't authenticity. It's inflexibility. And inflexibility is the enemy of influence. Let me give you a few scenarios. At a family gathering, emotions run high, stories are shared, laughter fills the room. You've had a rough month, and part of you wants to unload all of your struggles. The less strategic person overshares, pouring out every detail, leaving everyone feeling heavy and awkward. The more strategic person, they share something meaningful but measured. Enough to build connection, enough to show vulnerability, but not so much that it shifts the entire mood of the evening. That's wisdom in communication. Or picture a business negotiation in Texas. You have critical information that needs to be communicated. The blunt approach would be to lay it all out in the harshest terms, demanding action. And yes, sometimes bluntness has its place. But often, the better path is clarity delivered with finesse, truth wrapped in diplomacy. This way, the message is received, the relationship is preserved, and the door to future collaboration remains open. Here's the point. Success doesn't come from what you say alone. It comes from how you say it, and whether the other person can actually receive it. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are. He understood that people judge by appearances, by surface impressions, by the way something is presented. If you ignore that reality, you handicap yourself. If you master it, you unlock doors others can't even see. Think about leaders you admire. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't deliver his message of justice with dry statistics. He painted pictures with his words. He stirred emotions. He adapted his tone for churches, rallies, or interviews. Steve Jobs didn't just describe new products. He staged presentations that made people feel like they were witnessing magic. Neither of these men abandoned their authenticity. They amplified it through intelligent presentation. Contrast that with the colleague who knows their subject inside and out, but drones on in jargon no one understands. Or the activist who believes in a noble cause but alienates their audience by yelling at them instead of inspiring them. Their intentions may be good, their content may be correct, but because their delivery is rigid, their impact is small. Here's what truly authentic communication looks like. It isn't about dumping everything you think, in the same tone, in every context. It's about choosing the part of yourself that will best connect with the person in front of you. It's about expressing truth in a way that invites understanding instead of resistance. So ask yourself, are you limiting your effectiveness by clinging to a narrow idea of authenticity? Or are you willing to expand your skill set, to communicate intelligently, to make sure your values and your vision actually reach people? Because here's the irony. The world doesn't reward those who are authentic but unheard. It rewards those who are both authentic and effective. If you're ready to embrace this, comment below. I master communication. Principle 4. Breaking free from limiting beliefs. Many people don't fail because they lack talent. They don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they've accepted invisible boundaries that were never real in the first place. These boundaries aren't made of walls or locks. They're made of ideas. Ideas planted in your head about what you shouldn't want, what you can't achieve, and what you don't deserve. Let me show you how this plays out. A young woman in Chicago is offered a promotion at her company. She thinks about it, then shakes her head. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough yet. Maybe next time, so she declines. Meanwhile, her colleague, a man with less experience, fewer credentials, but a different mindset, accepts the same opportunity without hesitation. He isn't entirely ready either, but he says yes, and he figures it out on the job. 2 years later, he's leading teams, building influence and creating opportunities. The woman? She's still waiting until she feels good enough. Who moved forward? The one who acted, not the one who waited. This is the silent power of limiting beliefs. They don't slam doors in your face. They whisper, you're not ready to walk through them. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." In other words, the position doesn't make the person valuable. The person makes the position valuable. Waiting until you feel ready is a trap, because readiness is often an illusion. It arrives after action, not before it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Self-doubt is not always natural. Much of it is learned. It's the product of conditioning. Teachers who told you not to aim too high. Parents who warned you not to take risks. Peers who mocked ambition as arrogance. Over time, those voices become your own. You stop questioning whether they were ever true. But ask yourself, who benefits when you doubt yourself? Who gains when you sit on the sidelines instead of stepping into the game? It's rarely you. It's usually systems, organizations, or individuals who are quite comfortable with you staying small while they move ahead. Think about how many opportunities have passed you by, not because you weren't capable, but because you hesitated. How many times have you apologized for taking up space? How many times have you lowered your voice so others could shine? How many times have you stayed in the background when you had every right to stand at the front? Here's the breakthrough. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need a certificate of worthiness. You don't need a nod of approval from the crowd. Growth is not something you wait to be granted. It's something you claim. Let me give you a practical exercise. The next time you feel hesitation creeping in, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Who benefits if I hold myself back right now? 2. Is this hesitation truly protecting me or just keeping me smaller than I need to be? 3. What would I do in this moment if I believed I was absolutely allowed to pursue it? The answers will shock you. More often than not, hesitation serves other people's comfort, not your growth. Remember this, self-doubt is optional. Limiting beliefs are optional. Results belong to those who move, even when they're uncertain. And once you understand this, the question shifts. It's no longer, am I ready? It becomes, am I willing? Because willingness, not readiness, is the gateway to growth. If you agree, anchor it right now in the comments. I choose growth. Principle 5. Strategic ethics. This is the turning point. Everything we've talked about so far, rigid thinking, social expectations, communication, limiting beliefs, leads us here. Because in the end, it all comes down to how you make decisions in a world that isn't simple. Most people are taught that ethics is binary. Something is either right or wrong, good or bad, black or white. And in an ideal world, maybe that would be enough. But we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a complex one. And in complex environments, the people who achieve meaningful change understand something most others don't. Ethics must be applied strategically. Now let's be clear. Strategic ethics does not mean abandoning your principles. It doesn't mean lying, cheating, or manipulating. What it means is learning to use your values in ways that actually create positive outcomes, not just comfortable feelings. Let's break this down. You practice generosity when generosity builds trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. If your openness inspires others to contribute and collaborate, then your generosity has power. You practice transparency when honesty helps everyone make better decisions, when it builds credibility and strengthens long-term trust. You practice forgiveness when offering a second chance inspires real improvement, when it gives someone the opportunity to rise higher than their mistakes. These are noble applications of values. They create ripple effects of growth, loyalty, and trust. But what happens when the opposite is true? What if your generosity isn't building trust, but being taken advantage of? What if your transparency doesn't lead to better decisions, but instead hands ammunition to people who want to harm you? What if your forgiveness doesn't inspire growth, but simply gives permission for harmful behavior to repeat? In those moments, blind adherence to being good isn't noble. It's ineffective, and often it's destructive. Here's where strategic ethics comes in. Let's use a real-world scenario. Imagine a CEO in Silicon Valley. He learns that an employee is spreading false information about him, rumors that, if left unchecked, could erode his reputation. Now, one option is to take the high road, say nothing, and hope the truth speaks for itself. That might feel noble, but it leaves the false narrative unchallenged. Another option is to publicly attack the employee, calling them out harshly. That might feel satisfying, but it fractures the team and creates fear. Instead, this CEO does something different. He calls a meeting. He lays out the facts clearly, calmly, and transparently. He explains the misinformation without humiliating the individual. In the process, he not only protects his own reputation, but also reinforces a culture of accountability and fairness. The rumor dies, the truth prevails, and the team remains united. That is strategic ethics in action. Not naive, not ruthless, effective. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." What he meant was simple. The person who lacks strategic thinking might spend years being exploited, years learning the same painful lessons before they finally set boundaries. The wise person, by contrast, applies their values intelligently from the beginning. They set healthy boundaries immediately, not after they've been drained of energy. Let's make this even more practical. Imagine someone in your life who constantly asks for favors but never reciprocates. A conventional response might be, "Keep giving." That's what good people do. But what does that accomplish? It creates imbalance and resentment. A strategically ethical response: you make your support conditional on mutual respect. You help them, yes, but you also communicate that healthy relationships require balance. In doing so, you not only protect yourself, but teach them the value of reciprocity. That's better for everyone. Another example. Suppose you discover information that could dramatically change an upcoming business deal. The conventional thinker agonizes. If I share, it may upset people. If I don't share, I feel dishonest. The strategically ethical thinker reframes the problem. How do I share this in a way that protects relationships while ensuring everyone makes the best decision? They choose both truth and timing with wisdom. Or picture this: someone spreads lies about you publicly. The conventional, nice response might be silence. Don't stoop to their level. But silence allows the lie to grow. The strategically ethical response: correct the record, not with anger, but with precision and clarity, in a way that not only protects you, but demonstrates that truth and fairness are part of your character. See the difference? Strategic ethics doesn't mean you stop being generous, transparent, or forgiving. It means you practice those values with discernment. You ask, will applying this value in this way create the outcome it was meant to create? Or will it be twisted into something harmful? Look back at history. The leaders who shaped society for the better were not those who followed simple moral rules in every context. They were the ones who knew when to be firm, when to be patient, when to compromise, and when to stand immovable. Abraham Lincoln issued pardons when forgiveness could heal, but he also went to war when the Union was at stake. Martin Luther King Jr. preached love, but he was strategic in organizing marches, sit-ins, and speeches that could not be ignored. Even in business, figures like Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs are admired not just for their brilliance, but for their ability to combine vision with practical ethics, knowing when to share openly, when to hold back, when to forgive, and when to enforce. So here's the challenge for you. Are you willing to stop thinking of ethics as a rigid checklist and start thinking of it as a toolkit? Because that's what it truly is. Each value, kindness, honesty, forgiveness, is a tool. But tools only work if you know when, where, and how to use them. The alternative is simple moralism. It feels good in the short term, but it leaves you ineffective in the long term. It makes you easy to exploit. It limits your ability to create change. Strategic ethics, on the other hand, empowers you. It allows you to expand your influence, protect your values, and apply them in ways that actually make a difference. It transforms you from someone who means well but achieves little into someone who means well and achieves much. And here's the key insight. Effectiveness isn't selfish. It isn't about just protecting yourself. When you become more effective, you gain more resources, more influence, and more power to help others. By applying ethics strategically, you expand the reach of your values instead of shrinking them. So the next time you're tempted to blindly apply a rule, always be generous, always forgive, always be transparent. Pause. Ask yourself, will this create the outcome it's supposed to create? Or will it backfire? Then choose accordingly. Because the world doesn't just need people who are good. It needs people who are good and effective. People who are principled and practical. People who are guided by values but strengthened by strategy. If you're ready to take that step, claim it in the comments. I create positive impact. Closing. The final choice. We've come to the end, and the path ahead is clear. In front of you are two roads. One road is the comfortable one. The road of being endlessly nice, endlessly predictable, endlessly overlooked. You mean well, but your influence is small. People like you, yes, but they don't take you seriously. You become the person remembered for good intentions, not for real impact. The other road is harder, but far more powerful. It's the road of combining integrity with intelligence. It's the path of remaining true to your values, while also being wise enough to apply them strategically. It's the path that transforms kindness into strength, honesty into credibility, forgiveness into growth. It's the path of those who actually change things, instead of just wishing they could. Machiavelli wrote, "It is best to be both loved and feared. But if you must choose, choose respect. Respect is not given, it's earned, and it's earned by being effective." So the question is simple. Do you want to be remembered as someone who was merely good, or as someone who made a difference? Do you want your values to remain words, or to become actions that reshape your world? If you're ready to step into deeper thinking, if you're ready to be more than just well-intentioned, leave this final affirmation in the comments. I choose power, because the world doesn't belong to those who only dream. It belongs to those who have both the heart to care and the intelligence to act. The ones who take principles, combine them with strategy, and use them to turn vision into reality. The choice is yours.